Yeah. It's so irritating that people don't show their cameras. Hmm?
Well, good evening. My name is Don Kortz. I'm Academic Dean here at Rockford Lutheran. Thanks for joining us tonight. Those of you that are here live in the core, and for those of us that are joining on Zoom, we appreciate your being here. And I'll just mention to remind those of you that are zooming in to go ahead and mute your microphones so that there isn't anything that gets in the way of the rest of our listening opportunity here. And welcome everybody to, I think, some people think that idea of having a junior high college planning night is kind of, what are you talking about? Junior high, college? And, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. And I don't think it's ever too early to get started when we're talking about really more than college. We're talking about various aspects of the future of your young person. And for those of you students that are joining us, first of all, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. But you've got a lot of important things to be learning about and thinking about. And as I was meeting, for example, today and yesterday, I met with the 6th and 7th graders who are ready to start talking about classes for next year. And there were some that when I asked them at the beginning of my presentation, okay, 6th graders, you ready to talk about college? And the eyes kind of lit up, and some of them just frankly said no. And so followed up a little bit. Well, why not? What is it about that? And I thought, and so kind of came to the conclusion. Okay, so but if you know more about it, it's a little bit less scary, right? And they acknowledged by the time we got to the end of the hour, they felt a little bit better about it. So that's kind of our point tonight for those of you that are students here. The idea is the more you know about it, the sooner we begin to really unpack what the future can hold. It's a whole lot less scary. So that's what we're really about. Before we begin tonight, though, let's start with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity we do have to gather tonight and to think about the future. Lord, as we do that, we know that we have no idea of how we can anticipate the future, as our life in the past year has clearly demonstrated. In that, God, we know that you are the one that holds that future, and you're the one to which we cling as we hope for whatever that future holds. God, we're thankful that we can walk down that path with you, and I ask that you would be with these young people, be with these families, bless them as they anticipate some phenomenally exciting and challenging and sometimes scary opportunities down the road. Lord, let us use this opportunity tonight to just become more familiar with what you've called us all to do and to be, so that this can be a journey that leads us to everything that you've created these young men and women to be in your world today. In your name, amen. Okay, so starting here with our mission statement of our school, because part of what we're hoping tonight is that you see how what we do as a school is really oriented towards exactly what we're talking about here, and that is growing these young people from 6th, 7th, 8th grade all the way through high school to a point where they're really ready to begin a new stage of experience and a new part of life. And so that's really what the mission of our school is about. So here's what we're here to talk about, just in kind of a nutshell. We're not going to be able to get deep into any of these topics, but what I will tell you is that as we travel through this experience together over the next 5, 6, 7 years, however many that is, there's opportunities for us to begin to dig deep into each of those. Today is just kind of like the starting point, getting our toe in the water a little bit. By the time you get to be juniors, for example, we've got a college planning for junior high, and there's another one for freshmen, another one for sophomores. There's 2 for juniors, one totally on just college testing, and all those sorts of issues. And then another one for the college search process and planning. And then there's two for seniors, which includes one that's just on financial aid and one that's on the final steps of the decision-making process and applications and scholarships and all those sorts of things. So that's kind of what you had to look forward to. This is just this is a real just get started in the process here and go from there. This is a quote I ran across. I thought just kind of interesting, clever, as we're really thinking about our world today and the changes that are so much a part of it. You know, you think about something like this, and you know, a lot of that just simply sounds familiar. It's obviously been that way for a long time. You know, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? So as we think about what the process is of growing up, I'm going to start by talking about really where your students are as young adolescents and where you are as students in the process of really maturing into the whole teenage adolescent part of life. And so as we do that, we're going to talk about, you know, what are some of the challenges that you face? There's some really difficult things that are part of this process of adolescence. And it's interesting as I have opportunity to kind of read up and study that, because obviously I spend my entire career dealing with adolescents. It's not getting any easier. I mean, there's some studies that have demonstrated that because of some things that are happening generationally and nutritionally and so on, adolescence is actually a whole lot longer than it ever used to be. And so that in itself creates a bit of a challenge. But there's a lot that happens in this process, and there's a lot of change that takes place in the lives of our students, and our world being shrunk in such phenomenal fashion due to technology presents all sorts of issues and so on in the lives of young people that that really were never there before, and that makes your job as students and children, young people, a whole lot more difficult. And it certainly doesn't make your job as parents any easier, because, you know, our tendency is to parent as we were parented. And let's face it, it's a different world today. And like I said, it hasn't gotten easier. As we think about what we really want to accomplish, as you know, and this is kind of a scary thought too. I've got 4 kids. They're long out of the home now, and you know, my wife and I, just a strange phenomena. Of course, part of this is due to COVID and all those sorts of things. But this past Christmas, here we are in our family room. We're in the same home that we raised our family in. We lived there for 30 years now, and we literally were sitting there in that family room on Christmas Day and could hear the clock tick. And I thought, you know, it's never been like that before. But the scary thing is, for some of you, that's going to be 5, 6 years from now. Now, your kids will be at college at that point, so they might be coming home for Christmas. But when you think about the fact that the time frame you have to accomplish all sorts of things that we want to accomplish, that time frame's pretty short. And I can tell you, I've been to a lot of graduations, and virtually there's never a graduation night that goes by that somebody doesn't come up and say, wow, it just seems like we started at Rockford Lutheran yesterday. I can't believe where that time went. And you know, my prediction is 5 years from now, some of you will be saying that. But there's a lot that we want to do with our young people in terms of really building and preparing them for everything that's going to equip them for the future that they're going to face. And you know, we don't know what a lot of that's going to be, but it's certainly a challenge. One of the items on here that I'll mention that some people usually ask me about is about the Marshmallow Test. Okay, so it's a pretty famous study years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I think it started. You sit a young person, like a 5-year-old, down at a table, and you give them a marshmallow, and you tell them, okay, I'm going to come back in 10 minutes. If the marshmallow is still there when I come back in 10 minutes, you'll get another one. And then you leave in 10 minutes and see what happens. We come back in 10 minutes, and if it's there, you give the kid another one. But the issue is, in many cases, the marshmallow would have been gone by then, because obviously that's a tough thing to sit there and look at for 10 minutes when there's nobody else in the room, nothing else keeping you from eating the thing. However, what they found is there's a huge correlation between the kids that were able to have the self-discipline to sit there and watch that marshmallow, knowing they're going to get another one if they don't touch it. Those kids that were able to do that had a much higher tendency to be successful in school, to go on to college, to land good careers, and have a what would be a fairly disciplined life, and a successful life in terms of their educational future and all those sorts of things. So as you're thinking about all the things we like to teach our kids, yeah, that self-discipline thing is part of it. But we could spend a lot of time talking about each one of these topics, and we need to move on. The thing that's really key, though, is I want to bring us as parents back to, and I say us because I'm still a parent too. You'd be surprised. I've got a 30-year-old and another one that's over 30, and my youngest is like 26, something like that. And there's still a parenting role that happens there at times. And the key is that we recognize that in the midst of all these things that we're here to do as parents, it centers around this. And obviously, as people of faith, we look at that and say, it starts from the fact that we recognize that our God is love, and that's His relationship with us. And that's what provides the strength and the direction for us to have that kind of relationship with our kids. And you as kids, you begin to see that too as you grow in understanding yourselves and your parents and God and what He's called you to do as a person in this world, and begin to interact with other people around you and so on. But that's what really directs how everything else happens. So just a little graphic there. Okay, so we've talked a little bit, we saw a little bit there about what our challenge is and what we're trying to accomplish. What do we have to work with? And I talk about this just in a brief fashion. The reality of our world says that these kids come into this so let's say undeveloped, unrefined, so I hate to use the term raw, but the idea is come into this world with not a lot of capability, but a whole lot of potential. And one of the things that becomes a challenge for us as we think about this issue of literally just how brains work, look at that. How many different connections in more ways than there are atoms in the universe, just in your brain, in each one of you, in the brain of each one of you. That's what you're born with. And the idea is you spend the rest of your life growing that and developing that. And, this amazes me too. Nowadays, especially with LED, you can imagine how much light you could put out with just the stuff that's going on in your brain all the time. But that, it's amazing stuff. But here's what we're talking about here over the course of these next years. The linkage that needs to take place is coming from the experience that you young people have. Now, recognize that, okay, so if you're talking like 12 years old, think of your life divided up kind of into thirds so far. You got your first 6 years that you are really dependent upon parents. Now, obviously, at 5 and 6, you were able to go away to school and be somewhat independent. But, once school was out, you just waited for somebody to come pick you up. That was pretty much the deal, right? Okay, and then from 6 years old to today, you guys have really grown a lot in terms of being able to kind of manage things on your own and handle life on your own, that sort of thing. But it's only another 6 years before you're going to be out of the house. And at 18, most of you are going to be literally living on your own. So the experiences that you carry with you over these next 6 years are going to be key in terms of you developing that mind, developing that brain into what it's going to be then for the rest of your life. And there's a lot of experience we want to build into that because there's a lot for you to learn before you're going to be ready to tackle everything the world has to face you with. And that's only 6-7 years from now. Okay. So one of the reasons I like, the neurons that fire together, wire together. The idea is, and this is part of the reason I mention this is for you as parents is to realize the stuff that your kids are spending their time in That's what's wiring their brain. The things that they are experiencing are the things that are literally building their brain and creating those connections. And so as you think about what your role and responsibilities are as parents over these next years, in terms of providing them with the kinds of experiences that are going to build a great brain, you know, there's some important choices that need to be made there. There's some important, you know, and with those choices come things to do and things to not do. But think about that as in the fact that, you know, your kid's literally still building that brain, and what happens in those experiences the next 6 years are really huge before they're go off to their next stage of life. The other thing I'll throw out there too, and I see a number of young gentlemen here, okay, and this is nothing against young gentlemen. I had 3 of them, that sort of thing, and believe me, I understand how they work. But one of the things that's a reality for us is young gentlemen's brains develop later than young ladies' brains, okay? And it's really interesting to me. It's that the science of neurology has gone leaps and bounds in the last 10 years because of what we're able to do in terms of studying the brain through computers. But all we're finding out is what we already knew. Because 40 years ago, Hertz would not rent an automobile to a young man under 25. Or if they did, they would charge a whole lot more because they knew the likelihood of that vehicle coming back to them in the same kind of condition that it left was pretty slim. Now, they didn't understand the neurology of that. They just knew that was life. They just knew that happened from experience. And so, you know, that's just part of renting a car. It still is. If you're a young man, you might not rent a car under 25, or if you do, you're going to pay more. Now we understand why. That part of your brain that's called the prefrontal cortex, in young men in particular, is finishing its development and finally reaching the stage where it's able to make good, solid, logical, executive function type decisions at guess what age? 25. Hertz knew that 40 years ago. We just discovered it in the last 10 years, okay? So what does that mean? You know, there's going to be a whole lot of situations, and guys in particular, that you are not going to find yourself in a situation where you're making good decisions. And I'm not trying to give you an excuse, but the reality is your brain's not ready to do that yet. Now, there's some things that we can do as parents to help get those brains ready a little bit earlier and train them, because remember, the things that we give you as experiences now are the things that wire your brain. So you as parents, you know, think about that in terms of, okay, what can I do in terms of modeling good executive function, good decision making, good rational, logical, sit down and think about this, think about the consequences kind of decision making, which obviously is what teenage boys are not notoriously known for. But that becomes part of our role as parents. That's just one little snippet of this idea of what we're doing with our brains and what we're doing as parents with the minds of these young people as we prepare them for their future. Okay, in the midst of that, I like to just throw in, okay, so here's the core values of Rockford Lutheran. As you think about the things that we've seen so far that we want to accomplish, and the means by which we've talked about wanting to accomplish that, providing good experiences for kids, you know, that really just meshes really well with what the core values of our school are. We start from the standpoint, we recognize that at a Christ-centered school, we are here to love these kids like God loves us, and to help them grow in every fashion that God has designed them to be. Recognizing that God made every one of them differently, gives each one of them different gifts and passions and goals and desires and so on. And you know, that just provides a great context for us to form a family that kind of marches through this process of growing together. At the same time, yeah, we've got some things we want to expect. And you know, building those expectations into what we do as a school is a part of providing those young people an experience of high expectations that they set then for themselves someday. And as we talk about things like service and living together in harmony and so on, we're talking about, again, providing experiences for kids that are going to prepare them, get them into the habit of doing important things that we want to see them do for the rest of their life. important aspects of how we want to see them live out life as they interact with each other from here on out. So I just put that up there because I hope that you see that, the things that we're talking about that need to happen for your young people over the course of these next 6, 7, 8 years, that's really what we are about as a school, and I think that's great to be a part of for me. So what kind of environment do we want to think about creating? Okay, a lot of this is probably not new. Okay, a lot of it is stuff that you're probably familiar with and have heard before, but think about from what we've just been talking about in terms of what we want to really teach our kids and the critical stage that they're at in life in terms of brain development and the short amount of time that we have with them to accomplish this. There's a lot of ways in which we need to wisely manage their environment, let's say, okay? And so think about that as you think about the role that you have with kids at home. One of the things that we're talking a lot about as a school, and we're going to continue to talk about this. I've talked about it with kids just as I've met with them the last couple of days, and we're going to continue to talk about it with parents too. A lot of people talk about the change that we've seen that's happened in the world of education in the last 10 months, a year, that kind of thing, and think that the change has been the fact that we've transitioned from everybody's learning at school all the time to now electronically we've got people that are learning at home all the time or learning at home part of the time or doing both and blah, blah, blah. The change is not the technology. The change is really the fact that our world has changed, and our response to it is recognizing that you as students have got to take a lot more ownership for your education. Because in many cases, you're going to find yourselves in situations where there's less structure from the outside. You've got to provide more of the structure, more of the direction and the focus of your education. You've got to own your education because you're going to need to be making those decisions. Am I going to sit here in class with my Chromebook open and actually pay attention to what that teacher's talking about and do what they ask me to do? Or am I going to see if I can try to get off onto some other kind of site and just kind of mess around and just kind of blow this class period off? Okay, that's a reality, right? Am I gonna, I'm stuck at home for a while, whether it's quarantine or whatever it is. I got all sorts of options in terms of what I want to do. Am I really going to sit here and zoom in and do my classwork like I'm supposed to? Or am I going to just turn on the Zoom, turn off the video, go kind of crash on my bed and mess on my phone for the next hour and a half? Okay, you've got to own your education. You've got to own the where you're going with that. And that's really a critical step for you as students. And it requires a lot of maturity and a lot of self-control. But if you don't do that, where you're going to end up is going to be not near as nice a place as it could be, okay? And as parents, there's a new role for parents now. I don't know how many parents have said, wow, this teaching thing's really hard. I didn't realize everything that went into that. Yeah, it's a whole lot different when you've got a different kind of role to play at home. And, we've been fortunate as a school, we've been able to be here face to face. And so hopefully, provide a situation where parents can kind of be off and doing their parent or their family thing again in terms of employment and all those sorts of things while we can be a part of the learning process for kids here. But in any case, you as parents have got a different kind of role in terms of really being invested in the education of your student and in the growth of your student. It's not near as a passive of experience as it used to be. You've got a little bit more to keep an eye on. Even if the kid's here at school all day, you've got more to keep an eye on when they come home and make sure they're really a part of what they're supposed to be a part of in that process. And so the parent role has changed. That's the change. It's the change of responsibility of parents. It's a change in the responsibility of students as really owners of their income owners of their education, and for parents as people that are really invested in the lives of their kids. So that's the change, and those are just a lot of different roles that we have to play as a part of that change process. The key that's down here, and it kind of set off on its own because, spending time together. There's nice electronic means by which we can do that at this age, but we've got 4 kids. One of them's in Belvedere, and that's great. One of them's in suburban Missouri, suburban St. Louis. One of them's in Dallas. One's in Houston. Spending time together has a whole different meaning for us now as a family. So just think about that. And you know, in the midst of that, what are your experiences as a parent, and what are your experiences now as you're, you know, what's some ways in which you can prepare kids and practice good study habits? What are some means by which you can be successful in growing character in your child? These things for you to think about as you're looking again at your role as parents, is really being invested in the future of your child. There's a lot to think about there. You know, what's hard for you? What's easy for you? Question. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. We are recording the Zoom, and this is a PowerPoint that will both the Zoom and the PowerPoint will be posted on Counselor's Corner in a couple of days. So yeah, you'll be able to access it from home. So yeah, don't worry about having to take notes and all those sorts of things. You'll be able to get back to this from the Counselor's Corner on our school website. Okay, so we've started with taking a look at, you know, what are the challenges? What do we want to accomplish? What are we working with? And so the next step here is, okay, so what are colleges looking for? Now we're kind of going from the big picture, now we're kind of zooming the picture down into, all right, let's start talking specifically about the college part of this. That's only one facet of preparing your kid for the future, but it's an important part of the process, obviously, that we're here for tonight. So what are colleges looking for? One of the first things I talk about, and I'll keep reminding you of this as we go through this process here over the next 6-8 years, colleges are looking for graduates. Now, the mistake a lot of people make is thinking that means colleges are looking for high school graduates. No. And if you don't believe me, take a look at the proliferation of homeschooling. Those students, in many cases, are not really considered graduates because they're not going to school, right? Colleges love to get homeschool students. Colleges are not looking for high school graduates. Colleges are looking for future college graduates. They're looking for kids that they know are going to come into their building, come into their campus, come into their program, come into their community, and invest themselves for the next 4 years in that whole experience, and then walk out of there 4 years later with a degree, with a potential job, with a future graduate program, that sort of thing. Why? Because colleges get rated and ranked just like everybody else does. And the number one thing that colleges get ranked on is how many kids come in at the front end and how many kids leave at the back end with their degree, and how many get lost in between. The whole issue is they want to bring in students to their campus that they know have a high possibility of being successful in the classroom and being successful in becoming a part of their community and culture and staying there and graduating 4 years later, because that's one of the biggest things they get scored on. And literally, you know, U.S. News World Report, you know, they're known for all sorts of college rankings, that sort of thing. That's one of the top things that they score schools on. How many people come in, how many drop out? How many people come in, how many graduate 4 years later? And if they're not doing a good job with those numbers, that they're going to get docked significantly by all those different rating programs. And that's obviously going to hurt them in terms of their future. The other reality is, you know, the business office at that university is not going to want to see 5,000 freshmen come in and 4 years later, 2,000 seniors graduate. That's not going to work well for keeping the bills paid, okay? So they're looking for college graduates. Now, what does that mean? Well, they want them to be obviously academically capable. They're looking for kids that they know can do a couple of things. Number one, they can handle good, solid college level coursework, and they've got a good work ethic. Okay, now those are very difficult things to measure sometimes, but the reality is, and you know, today's world's changed a little bit because you hear all sorts of news about, yeah, college testing isn't as big a deal as it used to be. Well, that's the reality. There's no choice because so many people couldn't take the college tests. But why do colleges like to see those sorts of tests? Because that gives them a really good gauge of where kids are in terms of just understanding and handling hardcore academic stuff. Because if you're going to come in the front door and you're really going to stumble just in the first class that you run into, the chances of you staying there and being successful have just gone way down. So they want to make sure that you've got some academic capability. Without those tests, that's a little bit tougher for them because, you know, let's face it, a 3.5 at Rockford Lutheran is not the same as a 3.5 at a lot of other schools. Okay? And I'll tell you right now, this is one of the things that it'll come up later when you're juniors and seniors, that sort of thing, we'll talk about it. We don't rank our students. You know, like top in the class, middle of the class, bottom of the class? Because the kid that's in the middle of our senior class this year has got like a 3.4 GPA. They're taking 2 or 3 dual credit college classes. And they've got a full schedule of 5, 6, 7 solid hardcore classes. That's the middle of our class. And 95 ballpark % of our kids are going on to college, which means even if you're in the bottom quartile of our class, you're probably going to college. Last year we had, well over half our student body, half our senior graduating class had already taken a college class, already had college credit. How can you compare that to a school where barely over 50% of the kids go to college? The middle of the kid in our school is going to be nowhere near the middle of the class of most of our schools in our area. So we just refuse to rank. We just don't do that because that does nothing but hurt our kids. So they're looking at other things, and therefore what they're looking at is what classes are you taking, what grades are you getting in those classes, what does that say about you in terms of your academic capability, what does it say about you in terms of your work ethic. Now, work ethic is something that obviously we work on here at school in terms of giving homework, expecting it to be done, grading it, holding kids accountable for it, all that sort of thing. You know what, you as parents have all sorts of other great opportunities to help build work ethic in the lives of your kids too. That's going to be a huge thing because, let's face it, that's going to make a big difference for them for the rest of their life. Well-rounded students. Colleges are not looking for kids that are going to come in, go to their dorm room, go to class, go to the library, go to the dorm room, go to class, go to the library, etc. They're looking for kids that are going to get invested in that campus. They're going to get invested and become a part of that culture and that community. Okay, they don't want bookworms. To be honest, a real high percentage of kids that drop out of school are kids that are phenomenally academically capable. It's just that that's all they're capable of. And they don't get connected. They don't have relational capabilities. They don't really become a part of that school culture and community. So when we're talking well-rounded students, why is it that we have things like service that are a big part of our school? Why is it we have such a huge activity program in years when you're allowed to have activity programs? Because we've got kids that can leave our school, and this is another thing that comes out there that people talk about as well. How can my kid be expected to be successful at a U of I if they're going to a school that's got 15,000 freshmen and they're coming from a school that's got 75 kids in the graduating class? I'll tell you how. Because they were one of 75 kids in that graduating class, they had the opportunity to be involved in everything and to know everyone. And now they go off to college, they're not going to know 15,000 freshmen. Nobody's going to know 15,000 freshmen. How are you going to survive in a place that's that big? I'll tell you how. You're going to find your niche. If you played volleyball at Rockford Lutheran, what are you going to do at U of I? You might not play varsity volleyball. The U of I is going to have club teams, and they're going to have intramural teams, and they're going to have all sorts of opportunities for you as a volleyball player to connect with other people whose language you speak, because you speak volleyball, they speak volleyball, we all speak volleyball. Let's all get together and play, and we'll go play those guys on that dorm floor, we'll go play those guys on that dorm floor, and that becomes my niche. And that niche can be cross country, it can be drama, it can be band, it can be basketball, it can be whatever, okay? But we provide a lot of opportunities for kids to do that sort of thing. Our kids do fine at huge universities because it's easier for them to find their niche, because they've done everything, they've experienced everything. They're comfortable in connecting with people that do those things too. Socially concerned students. Universities are looking for kids that are going to make a difference in the world of the future. Because one of those things they do get rated on is what happens to your grads after they leave. What do they go out and do after the fact? Now, they don't track them forever, but in the first few years, they're going to track. Are they going to grad school or are they going to get a job? If they're getting a job, how long are they staying on that job? How much are they making in that job? All those sorts of things. Partly because they're looking for people that are going to go out and make a difference in the world, a positive difference of influence in the world that they're experiencing. So those are things that colleges are looking for. So as you're thinking about what you want to see happen with your kid in the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, think about those sorts of things you want to build into their lives. Part of what they're looking for, sorry, the grading scale, the GPA stuff kind of fades out there. Part of what they're looking for, obviously, are classes and grades and those sorts of things. So here's how our grading system works. You see the grading scale there for classes, honors points, that sort of thing. There's a benefit to taking honors classes if you're getting A's and B's. If you're not getting A's and B's, then there's no benefit to that. You see the way the program works. So as I'm meeting with kids, and yesterday I met with 6th graders, today I met with all the 7th graders, and I said, you know what, your teachers have made recommendations for you for your classes for next year, and the system works real simple. If you want to be in an honors level class and you're in a regular class now, you need to get A's both semesters, and your teacher will recommend you for honors class next year. If you're in an honors class now and you're getting A's or B's both semesters, your teacher will recommend you for honors class next year. So that's basically how it works. If you're in an honors level class and you're not getting A's and B's both semesters, then we're probably going to make a move to put you in a regular class next year. That's basically how it works. Okay, so you know that's how the situation works. But that has a big impact on what sort of things are happening down the road in your future. We'll talk about that in a little bit second as we take a look at what some of those classes are that your kids are getting to choose and to be involved with next year. Because when we're thinking about a program, in our case, as we're talking about academically well-prepared students, you know, we've got 9, 10 dual credit classes operating on our campus this year. We're going to have a boatload of kids that are going to graduate from high school with their first semester of college already done, some of them with more than that. And when you think about those, you know, a semester of college, what's that going to cost you? Well, it could cost you anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 just for a semester. Is it going to be beneficial that your kid gets that much work done before they leave high school, and it's going to cost them virtually very little extra to get that college credit? Yeah, that's pretty significant. But you're not going to get to those dual credit classes unless you get the job done in junior high, unless you get the job done as a freshman, unless you get the job done as a sophomore. Okay, so that's an important thing about what you need to hear and be experiencing as we're doing this tonight. So what classes you take are huge to colleges. Core classes are going to be, you know, your English and your math and your science. Those are the big 3 that they really want to see that you're being challenged by and that you're taking and involved in successfully. It's going to be helpful if they see honors classes, AP classes, dual credit classes, just so you recognize AP classes are, their AP program is a whole lot different. AP program, it really doesn't matter if you take any certain class. The only thing that matters in the AP program is that you get a certain score on the test. Okay, we've got kids that take AP tests here in subjects that we don't really have AP classes in, and they do fine just because that's a subject they like, they read up on it, they love it, and they do well. We've got kids that take just our regular honors level classes here and take AP tests, and they do fine. It's not necessarily a AP class, but it gets them ready for the test, and all that matters is how you score on the test. We have a lot more dual credit classes. Dual credit classes are college classes. They're taught by a teacher that has to have the credentials to teach a college level class. They have to have a master's degree with X number of hours in the subject area. They have to use a college level textbook, college level testing, college level experience. And one of the reasons we like the dual credit thing is that, you know, I think it just means a whole lot for kids. The first, you know, at the beginning of the class, and the dual credit class, and you know, Mr. Martin's room, Mr. Freudenberg's room, or Mr. Vaughn's room, or Mr. McBee's room, etc. You know, you're going to get a course syllabus, and they're going to tell you what book you have to buy and use, and then you're going to go through that class, and you're going to take, you know, a couple of big hairy tests each semester, and you're going to have some big projects and that kind of thing. But the best part about that is, I tell these kids every time, you know, but you go to college. And you sit down in that first class in your college career, and you're sitting there and you're kind of nervous about everything that's changing in your life and about your roommate and getting moved in and being away from home and all that sort of thing. And you're going to sit down in that class, and what's going to happen? They're going to come by and they're going to hand you a course syllabus, and they're going to say, this is the book you need to buy, and then they're going to start digging into things. And you're going to be able to sit there and say, huh, I've done this before. I can do this. And if that part of your life is that well founded and grounded and comfortable, okay, we've probably done some things to help you with your roommate too, but you're going to be able to handle those things, and you're going to be able to handle being far from home and that sort of thing a whole lot better, because the academic part is going to be a breeze. That's why we really like doing the dual credit thing, because that's the kind of experience that it gives kids. Okay, here's the graduation requirements. 4 years of religion and English, 3 years of social studies, 3 years of math and science. Now, we also, in addition to the 3 years of math and science, also then have 4 years of flex classes, which include you're going to need to take some more science or other technology, engineering, fine arts, or math, dual credit classes, that sort of thing. You got some other electives, PE, foreign language, fine arts, et cetera. Let me mention too, part of that idea of being well-rounded, I didn't mention before, is experience in fine arts, okay? And one of the things I'll mention for you too, again, and this is, you know, as a school, we're all about use the gifts God gave you, use them to the best of your ability. If that means you're never going to be able to take a math honors class, okay, you just do the best that you can with what you got. But if that means you ought to be in band, then you ought to be in band. A lot of good reasons to be in band. That can become your niche when you go on to college. It can help build you a lifelong talent and experience that you're going to enjoy from here on out. And in other more practical terms, it's a big opportunity for college scholarships. I had 4 kids, 3 of them had partial music scholarships. And I didn't do anything special. They just grew up through the band program, through the choir program here at Rockford Lutheran. You know, one of them had an old horn that a graduate gave away and said, here, I don't need his trumpet anymore. I said, great, I'll give it to my kid. I gave it to my kid, and Valpo paid him $5,000 a year to be in band. Works for me, $20,000. I didn't want to tell him he was going to be in band anyway, because at Valpo, you know, their basketball team's pretty good. They go to NCAA. Guess who gets to go with the team? The band. But anyway. And so again, what we talked about before, what you do outside the classroom is important. Sports, drama, music, leadership opportunities. Being involved in activities is helpful, but it means a whole lot more if you're the class officer, or if you're the chair of the prom committee, or if you're the treasurer of Key Club, that sort of thing, because they know that along with that title came some additional responsibility and additional expectations. That says a lot that you're willing to take on additional responsibility and fulfill those additional expectations. That's what colleges are looking for. So seek out those opportunities to do those sorts of things. In school, outside of school is good too. You know, community agencies and involvement there in churches and that sort of thing. All those are great experiences for you to be a part of. So start doing it now. And here's something else. It's a real practical thing. Start keeping a list. Start building your resume today. It sounds goofy to think that you're in 6th grade and you're going to start a resume. But 7 years from now, are you going to remember everything you did in 6th grade? But if you can put out there for a university that wow, I started doing this in 6th grade, and I've been doing it for 7, 8 years, that's going to mean something to them. It says something about you in terms of your engagement in things outside the classroom and so on. So it's great. It's easy to do electronically nowadays, so that's not a problem. Okay, so another thing that's helpful to do is help your kids reflect on who they are. And this goes back to that neurology thing again. They struggle with that at this age. Understanding really who they are and what their passions and their abilities and their gifts are. That's one of the questions that I probably, as you guys met with me when you came in the door the first day, those were some of the things that we talked about. I asked you what you enjoyed doing, what you liked, what classes were your favorites, and that sort of thing. Because I'm trying to get you started on this kind of stuff here. Understanding who am I as a person? What is it that makes me unique? And so as parents, you've got a great opportunity to do that with your kids too. Don't miss that chance to spend time talking with kids about that kind of stuff. And there's going to be all sorts of things that are going to come up in your life over the next few years that are going to give you great opportunity to talk about, you know, what they're really enjoying in terms of their activity in life and what they're not enjoying. And all sorts of opportunities to talk about how you handle making mistakes and how you handle, you know, falling down and how you get back up and all those sorts of things. And so, you know, spend time talking about this stuff because naturally kids don't necessarily do that. Here's one of the things that's really just from a pure parenting kind of perspective, I just can't emphasize enough. Be deliberate as a parent. Take a look at the stuff that we're talking about here and be deliberate about building these kinds of conversations into the life of your kid. Because let's face it, our lives are busy. It is real easy for that alarm to go off in the morning and each one of us gets up and goes our separate ways and does our own thing. We don't even eat breakfast together. We sometimes don't even eat supper together. We sometimes don't see each other except for a few moments at the end of the day. And we pass and we're in our room on our phone and we're someplace else watching TV and we're over at a friend's house and somehow we all get together sometime at night. We run through the kitchen and grab something to eat and go on and do something else. And we go to bed and get up the next day and do it all again. We really need to be deliberate about building these sorts of experiences into the discussion time as a family, and just talking about that kind of stuff and letting kids know that how you value them for who they are, not for what they're capable of doing, but just who they are. Not that because of the grades that they got, but because they worked really hard in that class. Not because of the athletic accomplishments that they've earned, but just because they really worked at that and they found it a priority and they committed themselves to it. You know, honor them for that character that's developing inside them. But in order to do that, it just takes time, and you need to just sit down and talk. I don't know if it was a good idea or not, but there was a Dairy Queen right down the road here, and wasn't too often that we would go more than a couple of weeks that there would be a good reason for me to grab one of the four and, hey, how about we head down to DQ and get some ice cream? Well, no kid's going to turn that down, right? It didn't take long for them to figure out we weren't going for the ice cream. You know what's interesting? There's sometimes they come back and say, hey, Dad, you want to go get some ice cream? Okay, so this is what we've covered so far. What are the challenges we face? What are the goals that we have? What do we want to accomplish? What do we have to work with? What are colleges looking for? What are the unique characteristics of our child and what do they bring to the process? So this is where we're getting back to that deliberate thing again. Use all of this we've been talking about here to set some goals for the next 4 to 6 years for you and your kids. Sit down and just talk about that kind of stuff and then keep revisiting that over the course of the next 4 to 6 years. How are we doing on accomplishing what we want to do in terms of what you're doing with your grades, of what you're doing with your outside activities, of what you're doing with your character, you know, what you're doing with your work ethic, that sort of thing. Set some goals, talk about that kind of stuff, and just keep revisiting that. Be deliberate about that, because otherwise, if we're not deliberate, those years are just going to go, and they'll be gone, and we'll look back and think, I should have done that. Okay, let's dig into some just nuts and bolts kind of stuff here about what things are going to look like in your future. There's some stuff over there on college financing I threw out. Obviously, it's not something that's going to be, you know, tomorrow sort of a thing, but some of it could be. Some of it should be. Okay, savings plans. There are some special savings plans that you can look into. I've given some information on some places that you can connect and contact on that. Here are some websites that you can use, but some huge tax advantages to doing some college savings now. You've got an opportunity to do that. It can be a tax advantage for you now. It can be a tuition advantage for you later, because in some cases you can lock in a tuition at today's prices and so on. Okay, so talk to your tax advisors about stuff like that. Talk to other people that you might be involved with in terms of investments and such. But yeah, there's some things that you can do now that are going to help you in terms of dealing with college costs. And the paperwork that was over there that you picked up, that's helpful for you to begin looking at as well. These sites are all on our school webpage on the Counselor's Corner. Just some other places where you can get information about colleges and student aid and college planning and that sort of thing. You're going to be seeing this kind of stuff way down the road as you get to be sophomores, juniors, seniors. We'll spend time on it. But this is just a first glimpse that you get at that. Okay, we talked a little bit about test scores and those sorts of things and what colleges are looking for. Let's dig into some of that a little bit more detail. Here you get some ideas about what test scores look like here at Rockford Lutheran and what they look like nationwide, that sort of thing. This is middle of the class, top quarter, and top 10%. Okay, ACT goes up to 36. One of the things I tell people is that, you know, once you get up into the upper 20s and low 30s, yeah, then you're really talking some pretty serious money. Many cases at that point, you're talking maybe half tuition. One of the things to keep in mind is, you know, we hear so much in the news about athletic scholarships, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're great. But, you know, if there's this much money for athletic scholarships, There's this much money for academic scholarships. Okay, so the money's in the grades. Okay. Some information about our grad statistics just to kind of get an idea about what our kids are doing. And this is from an average from the past 5 years. So you see where our average GPA is at and college scholarships and enrollment in college, dual credit and so on. It's available here. So you get just some rough figures of what some of the percentages are and so on, 74%, et cetera. Some of the schools that our kids have gone to, just to give you an idea of some things to be looking for. Sometimes people like just having names of schools. Where do I start to look? Here's where our kids have been going. There's a map out there by where you come in, by the gym door, that shows where our kids have gone to college for the last 15 years or whatever. Sometimes people just like seeing those lists and getting some ideas about, where do I start to look? We're going to spend a lot more time with that in the future at these sorts of meetings, and I'll be spending time with your students on that as well. This is just kind of a place to start. There are lots of great schools, lots of great opportunities there. Kids go all over the place. It's really fun to see. Okay, let's talk a little bit about classes because if your students are in 6th or 7th grade, they should have been bringing home their rec sheets for next year. Okay, and there's a place where you need to sign it on the bottom, but I want you to go through that stuff with your kid. They should be pretty familiar with what it's about because we spent a lot of time talking about it today and yesterday. There's information on the back, some instructions for you as parents to take a look at. Obviously, you can always contact me about that, but I wanted to kind of walk through some things for you so that you have an idea of how it works. So these are the English classes that we have available for kids that you get on up into high school, and they essentially look the same in the junior high. There's a regular and honors level English all the way through, culminating in that senior English dual credit class where I told kids, our seniors have already finished their first college class. The seniors that are in that dual credit English class, they already finished their first college class in composition back in December. They're on their second class. Now, those guys will graduate from high school. Most of them will be done with college English because most cases you only need 2 classes, and they've got them. What's that?
Basically one-on-one in the fall and one-on-two in the spring.
Basically, yeah. Okay, here's math classes, and I'm putting this up here so you see we've got a lot of different options for kids as they walk through the world of math because there's a lot of different capabilities that we all have in terms of math and how that plays out. So some kids are in 6th grade math and they're doing just great there, and then next year they're going to 7th grade math and then 8th grade math, and then pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, math lit is a new class that we have this year. We're doing it in conjunction with Rock Valley College. It's a special class for kids that, math is not so much their thing, but if you pass this class and you get a B, or C in this class, you automatically don't have to do any remedial classes at Rock Valley. You automatically test into a college level math class at Rock Valley. And kids sometimes struggle with that, and that would sometimes get them off task in terms of making it through Rock Valley. So this is something that can help that. Okay, other kids are going to start in 6th grade advanced math class, and then they'll go to 7th grade advanced. This is kind of like a 7th grade math. This is kind of like an 8th grade math. Here they're into pre-algebra already in 8th grade. Here they're in algebra 1 in 9th grade, and geometry, algebra 2, pre-calc, stats, that kind of thing. Or another option is in 6th grade, they can be in 6th grade honors, which is kind of like an 8th grade math. And then here they're already in the honors pre-algebra. And then here in 8th grade, they're already in algebra 1. Now that's kind of huge because if you're in algebra 1 in 8th grade, you go to geometry, algebra 2, pre-calc, and calc, college level calc, AP stats. You can get some college credit that way. The key is though, getting into algebra 1 here in 8th grade. Some kids are starting algebra 1 in 7th grade and moving on through, that sort of thing. Those are the different options that we have. You'll see that laid out on your sheet. The rec sheet that you get will have recommendation from the teacher on it of what they recommend for your student to be taking. However, something I'm going to throw out there, and I want to make sure you guys know about it, and I've got some information sheets for you here tonight if you like. We do have a program where if your student, let's say, is in this 6th grade advanced class and they're doing pretty well, they're recommended for 7th grade advanced, which is good, but they'd really like to get over here, honors algebra 1 by the time you're in 8th grade. We've got a program over the summer. It's called the Boost program. Basically what it is if they're doing pretty well in 6th grade advanced, we're going to teach them the concepts of 7th grade advanced over the summer so they can skip that class. And now, instead of going from here to here from 6th to 7th grade, now they're going to go from here to here, right into pre-algebra. And then in 8th grade, they can go into algebra 1 and scoot on across all the way over here to calc. Okay? Make sense? So if that's going to be of help to you, that's something we really want to offer. Now, some kids are also, a lot of the 8th graders here, they're going to go right into pre-algebra and into algebra 1, that sort of thing as well. And we've got some ways in which we can work with some kids that are here and maybe give them a little bit of the pre-algebra stuff, give them a little bit of that so that they can move a little bit quicker through this process on this line and kind of basically move down a line and come across here a little bit quicker as well. Okay? So see me about that. If you have some questions, if you're interested, here's a form that you can pick up. Another thing that we offer, I'm sorry, that's the EDGE program I was talking about that gives the kids an edge, a chance to move ahead. The other program that we offer is called the BOOST program, which is, you know, if you're struggling with the math, it's not going all that well for you, you're kind of maybe pulling a C in it or maybe not pulling a C in it, but you should be. The BOOST program is let's work on some stuff in math skills over the summer so that you can go into your math next year a lot better shape. Basically, we're going to start teaching you, you know, if you're supposed to be going into 8th grade math as an 8th grader next year and 7th grade math was just a little shaky, all right, we're going to review some of 7th grade math and then we're going to start getting you working on 8th grade math ahead of time so that when you hit 8th grade math in 8th grade, you're going to be better prepared for it and it's going to be smoother sailing. Okay, that's the BOOST program. Got information on that one as well. Okay. If some of you don't have sample rec sheets, who's here that's got 6th graders? Okay. Okay, sorry. You've got yours already? Okay. 7th grade? Okay. So does everybody have a rec sheet? Okay, so you can kind of see what the rec sheet looks like that way and see what we're talking about as we're talking about teacher recommendations and what the class options are and that sort of thing. Okay, questions on math? We're good with that? Okay, here's science. And this becomes really critical because math and science work together, okay? So everybody in 7th grade is in life science. We start to make a shift at 8th grade because some people will go into earth science in 8th grade and then physical science in 9th grade, biology, some version of chemistry, some version of physics. Those are the 3 that colleges want to see that you have. And then you've got some time to do some other classes over here if you choose to in 11th and 12th grade, okay? Another option, let's take a look at the bottom row next because this is kind of the other extreme. Okay, so you're in life science in the 7th grade. If you're in honors algebra 1 as an 8th grader, that's a high school level math class. You can also be in physical science as an 8th grader, a high school science class. Then that means in 9th grade, you're already in biology. You see where you're a step ahead here? Okay, you're in biology as a 9th grade, chemistry as a 10th grader, 11th grader, you're in physics. But notice we got all these other science classes, Bio 2, Chem 2, Anatomy, Physiology, okay? We got a Physics 2 here, yeah, Physics 2, all right? Those are dual credit classes. Biology 2, Chemistry 2, Anatomy, Physiology, all dual credit classes. Actually 4 credit classes because they're lab classes, okay? So if you can get a head start on your science, you can get more of those classes in before you graduate and go on to college. It's possible you could leave here done with your English, your 2 classes of English, and done with your 3 classes of science, and done with your math, which is what we've already talked about so far. We haven't gotten to social studies yet, okay? So now, but it hinges on being in algebra 1 in 8th grade. That's why we offer the EDGE program, because we want to get as many kids as we can into algebra 1 in 8th grade. The reason why they have to work together, this is an algebra-based physics class. You have to have algebra 2 before you can take physics 1, okay? That's the kind of physics that colleges want to see. That's what we do, but so that's how it works. So, but the opportunity is there to get into, you know, some serious science classes here and get some serious college credit done. And let me tell you something about the dual credit program, AP program, and even Rock Valley program. If you're talking about being in a major in biology, most colleges will not accept your dual credit in biology because they're going to say, if that's your major, we want you taking all those classes here. It's legit. So they won't even accept Rock Valley transfer credit in most cases. They don't do AP, won't do dual credit. But here's the thing I tell kids. Okay, you don't really know if you're going to major in biology. First of all, your likelihood of changing your mind between now and then is pretty high. Secondly, okay, so you do. You're going to have to take that biology class when you get to college. Guess what's going to be your easiest class that semester? Because you already took it, right? There you go. Okay. And this is kind of a hairy thing, but we've got a lot of people that take 2 sciences their junior, senior year. I actually got one guy this year who's taking 3 science classes. Bio 2, Chem 2, and Physics. And he's getting A's in all of them. Amazing guy. Okay, world language. This is another area where you can really do some amazing things, but it's going to take some effort, okay? And students, again, remember we talked already about you need to own this, but okay, so in 6th grade, you can either be in Reading 1, Reading 2, or Intro to World Language. And then you just keep going through the sequence, okay? So Reading 2 here, Intro to World Language here, and then you can start your foreign language, world language study here. You have to take at least 2 years of world language at the high school level. So you can keep doing 11th to 12th grade if you want to, but you don't have to. That's why it says none there. You start out Reading 2 in 6th grade. You notice you can start high school level foreign language then in 8th grade. You can get in 5 years worth. If you started in 7th grade, you can get 6 years worth. Why do I want to do that? Because most people in our country don't do foreign language. So if you end up with a degree in, name it, accounting, architecture, business, engineering, and you also have a minor in a foreign language, guess who's going to have the greatest likelihood of getting hired by a company that does international business? What company does not do international business, right? Okay, so because the way that works with college is you'll go and take a placement test when you get there. We have kids, if they're going through 5, 6 years of world language here, they're going to test out of 3 college classes, 4 college classes in some cases, and if you're doing Spanish, we've got 3 dual credit classes you can take, guaranteed credit, okay? You can get a minor in a foreign language if you take 6 classes. If you test out of 3 or 4 of them, you're almost done, okay? All right, here's some other resources for you to just keep an eye on as we go through the next few years. Counselor's Corner. We've got a RLS guidance Facebook page. You can follow stuff that's going on college-wise there. I post all kinds of scholarships there, other types of college activities. One of the things that I post there that you guys are going to start to get interested in here pretty soon, a lot of universities offer summer programs. A little bit less this past summer than usual, but I'm thinking that's going to be picking up again. Sometimes weekend programs, week-long programs, whatever they are. Great experiences. If you're thinking about doing something with bioengineering, Northwestern's got a great program for that over the summer. A lot of schools do that sort of thing. Great opportunity for you as an 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader to go and check out bioengineering and see if you really like it or not. It's a whole lot cheaper to find that out now than it is to find out after your sophomore year of college and then you change your major. That's really expensive, okay? But the other thing is, if you're interested in going to a place like Northwestern, you go to that program, you get to know that school. Guess what? They get to know you. Okay? So think about that. If you're really interested in a highly selective university, check into what sort of programs that university offers for those sorts of summer experiences for high schoolers. Okay? Great opportunity to get your foot in the door. Okay? All right, any questions? I've been talking plenty long enough, right? It's time to go home. Well, thanks for coming tonight. I'll be around. The PowerPoint's going to be posted. The recording will get posted the next couple of days. And come and find me if you have any questions. Thanks for being a part of the program, and have a great evening.